hour or two, and time just goes like that,
Yeah.
and it's really fun listening to this, and I'm glad to see you doing some of this stuff, because that kind of stuff should be preserved and stuff.
Well, I'll tell you, I've got, and if you ever want copies of them, I'll give you copies of my interview with Jerry. I don't have it on tape, I've got it on cassette.
Do you?
Yeah, but I mean,
I've heard nothing but great things about him. Wish I could have known him.
he was a really good guy from what I knew of him, and I wish I would have gone and talked to him more.
Yes.
I only went and talked to him that once, but I'll bet you I was there from 11 in the morning until 9 at night.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and, I mean, we went through, he gave me copies of all these seniority rosters. I mean, I think this I picked up someplace, but, all these seniority rosters, and we looked at all the pictures and talking about stories, and, just interesting stuff.
A lot of the old railroaders, it was a job. They wouldn't have saved anything. Then other guys got boxes of stuff,
Yeah.
and
Mom was making fresh cookies.
I'm going to make you some
it's
room.
just what we need, huh?
You see what that?
Wow.
Then you uncovered this chest here. You know what that is? Recognize
We'll get your party room first.
that? Yep. That's curly maple. Rare stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I can tell. Usually maple or birch has this.
Their walnut has a burl too.
Yeah.
I have a bed made out of curly maple. It didn't go at the auction because I had a reserve on it.
Okay.
Up here they don't appreciate that.
Oh, really?
Not like they should. I had a reserve of 1,500. It was a rope bed that I know dates back to 1847 and before.
Right. Huh.
Help yourself.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, this railroading it was in my family pretty heavy. My dad, in fact, I got my dad. I guess I sent that out to Rich too. His original book from the Northwest School of Telegraphy, Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, I don't know if Arlen remembers a guy by the name of Cap Hagen.
No.
He started hardscrabble.
Okay, I've read a little or heard about it.
He and my dad went to telegraph school together. But Cap never followed through on it because his dad owned a grocery store here in town. It's where Duke's Grocery, was in the south side.
Okay.
By the HT Tavern down there. And so he coming home in World War II and helped his dad run the store. That's when they had to have rationing stamps for sugar and for butter and for everything else. And tires, you couldn't get gas without a coupon. You had to buy your A, B, and C coupons. The government assigned those to you by your job. If you had a job that required you to be on the road, you got an A coupon. Or if you were required that you were out of town going to work every day, then you got a B coupon. If you were just a driver, recreational driver, whenever you wanted to, then you got a C coupon. That told you how many gallons a month you could get. And every time you went in, they punched it. And when you were out of punches, you were out of travel.
Wow.
When you had the little red meat tokens, if you bought a pound of beef, you had to have so many red tokens. Beef was all ration, sugar was ration, tires, gas, butter.
Can you imagine what would happen if we ever did something like that nowadays?
And we complain about gas for $3, huh?
Yeah.
And we could buy it, It's
Yeah. Well, I guess in the East Coast right now they got some severe shortages out there.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, we're already, my partner and I, my buddy, there's two of us that run the night shift at Kohler in our department. And, we've already said, hey, we're going to start taking our bicycles to work because, one, we both need to get into shape.
Yeah.
And two, it's
Cost what?
yeah.
How far do you live from work?
Oh, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 miles.
Okay.
So
it's very possible to do it in good, in decent weather.
I took my Honda scooter yesterday. I got a Honda S cycle, got two wheels in the back and one in the front,
Mhm.
cantilever. It's it's an 86 model. Everybody's been after it to buy it, but it's street legal. It goes
sure.
35, 40 miles an hour. Gets 90 miles to gallon. And so it just runs like a charm. Get on it, and got a basket on the back for shopping.
Yeah, that's the way to go. I tell you.
Yeah, my V8 Jeep, but hauling my bass boat around, I know tournaments that I sponsor and run bass tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
It's making a difference in the response for tournaments too. I know a lot of guys are saying right now they ain't gonna fill their tournaments because I have guys coming out of 4 states.
Sure.
And it gets to be an expensive proposition
Mm-hmm.
when you're driving up from the middle of Illinois.
And then motel and meals and everything else.
Right, and just because energy costs have gone up, so has everything else. I mean,
Right,
even like
right.
eating in a local cafe, going to get breakfast has gone up for me.
Yep.
You know,
Absolutely.
everybody's costs are going up. Have you ever fished the flambeau flowage?
Oh yeah.
See, that's where my cottage is at.
Oh, okay.
So I've actually got, I've caught some, 19, 20-inch
Good
bass over
ways.
there.
In the Flambeau, you have to know where you're running because there's a damn lot of rock piles over there that ain't marked on the map.
Yep.
And we have some. In fact, I publish a list. I think this year, this is just the opens without the club tournaments. I think there are 56 bass tournaments in our area.
Wow.
Really?
It gets pretty crowded.
Wow.
Now you know that the flambeau that was built by a railroad, right? Yeah, I've got the book by, what's his name, Harvey Houston? I forget his first name, but his last name is Houston.
Yeah.
And if you go down by the Flambeau Dam, on the boat landing there, you'll see the dam. Look, it's a big long dike there.
Uh-huh.
That's the old railroad grade, and it went right
Okay.
along through up past this farm. But you can, if you walk that grade, you can see where the Y was.
Yeah.
And they had a junk pile right at the end of the Y, so they dumped everything off down there. And on the way back to Butternut, there's an old Sioux Line train car sitting there on the ground.
Okay. Yeah, the Sioux Line built.
No, the Rodis Lumber
Rodis
Veneer.
Lumber, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there was another big company. There was a Connor.
Yep.
Land and Lumber.
See, Connor and Marshfield, the old Connor company,
I know, yeah.
that was
Bill
originally
Connor.
Bloom's, I think.
Yeah. I think Jake Bloom's mother was a Connor,
Could be.
and another one was a lawyer in town there. But from Connor Land and Lumber, I knew Bill Connor.
Really?
He was quite old at the time that I first got to Marshfield in 50. I relieved over there in 54. And took over Marshfield in 1960. I'm just going to show you something I got. Arlyn hasn't even seen this. Talk about somebody saving everything for
I find that old one here.
Yeah.
Here in 1916.
Yeah.
I'm sure this is. We got 1893. Is the oldest guy on here. Some of these guys, I wonder if they were still firing with wood. I mean, firing the locomotive,
Yeah.
Now here's that Dutch Schultz guy that Jerry was telling me about. He's the guy that would do his drills up on top. Ed Mess and Miller. I think Miller was the foreman, he had said at the time. Whose house did you say you bought, Dick, in Marshfield?
Chet Schaefer.
Chet Schaefer.
Yep, roundhouse foreman.
Did you know Bill Burge?
Berkey.
Oh, yeah? Oh, Jesus, look at that thing. On strike. That's 1956, I take it? It's got the little 56 here?
I think it was 60.
Okay.
They were planning this for 4 years.
That's what
Wow.
I had to go to Eau Claire to walk the picket line.
Oh, yeah?
This was my son.
You got strike pay for that too? Like,
Huh?
You got a minimal strike pay?
There it is.
There's
That's
some of
the only strike they ever had.
Huh. These are some of the old seniority
Not that I
rosters
save
Jared
everything,
gave
you
me.
realize.
Yeah, right. So
Okay.
what happened with the strike?
It was settled after a while.
Fairly quickly?
No, it kind of lasted all summer.
Really?
I know, I can remember in Marshfield, I was agent in Marshfield, then, of course, when this happened. And we had no picket line there. But I remember the train going up and blocking Oak Street. I got this call one day, and we had it tied up for a while. Hello, why don't you sons of bitches go back on strike? That's all the guy said.
Well, no, were you in town when they knocked over that one of the city or county trucks was out there, and he ran across a crossing and the switcher tipped him right over?
Well, I don't recall
I got
that.
Keith sent me pictures of that too, where they got an old Elco like an S3 switcher there, and there's a dump truck tipped completely on its side at the crossing. He went across the crossing and there were no lights. And
It
it
was
just
pronounced Burgee.
Burgee?
Bill Burgee. Yeah, go ahead. 1904.
So what's your main interest? Is it Marshfield area or all Wisconsin or all Northwestern or what's your...
If someone's going to talk about trains in the state, I'm interested.
Okay.
Yeah.
My main interest is Marshfield operations, Marshfield history. But I have a significant interest in anything coming out of Ashland. Even like today, you'll see a lot of the pictures that I send to the group is pictures of stuff on the Ashland line of the WC or CN,
How long has that group been going? Were they sharing the pictures? Quite a while.
Oh.
I bet you I missed a lot of pictures. They're not archived at all, are they? You delete them, they're gone.
Yeah, if you delete them, they're gone.
Yep.
But Bob's had it going for, I would say, at least 4 or 5 years.
Really?
Yeah.
I just got on in February. I didn't
Oh, so
know anything
you've
about
missed
it.
a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Bruce Oldenburg got me on.
Yeah.
I knew a lot of these guys. Emmy Engelbretson.
Oh yeah?
See, the clerks were separate from the operators, but in later years they combined
Mm-hmm.
because there weren't any clerks left to do anything.
Have you seen these before?
Here's a guy,
Never seen a density map.
1894 WS. Now there's something for your Mondovi line. They used to have clerks and telegraph operators at Fairchild. They had both. It was a busy spot. Used to be a lot of passenger traffic out of Fairchild. Here's the guy that was at Fairchild, 1894, and this was your clerks seniority division. This guy here I knew because his son later worked at Marshfield, Lauren Mulvaney. Never drew a sober breath either.
Yeah.
Well, I got a feeling about half of the population of Marshfield was that way, to be
Yeah.
quite honest with you.
Oh boy.
Now, this is interesting here.
Where'd you get this kind of stuff?
That is from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation state rail plans, and they put them out from 1972, 73 until 82 or 83.
Oh.
And there is a wealth of information in there.
Yeah.
See, remember the guy I told you about with the Copenhagen?
Oh yeah,
See that name right
there
there?
it is, Ray Thebe.
Ray Thebe. Kleinheinz, he was gone before I ever got around there.
He was?
Yeah, he was gone.
Jerry didn't know him either.
And Strauss was gone, Lawrence was gone. I knew of them, but they weren't there anymore. Frank Tice wasn't there anymore either. Mary Myrtle, yeah, I remember that name.
Mary Myrtle, what did she do?
She was a clerk, but here, E.A. Hardy's was at Neilsville.
Mm-hmm.
Then he was appointed the agent at Altoona, and I took over from him when he died.
Okay.
Irv Hardy's, used to date his daughter.
Oh yeah?
You must have dated a whole
Yeah, you
lot
must
of
have been a
women.
real ladies' man.
Hey, I was a stud muffin. Or I thought I was.
Yeah.
Ramsey at Augusta. Yeah, a lot of these places had clerks, and wasn't express clerks either. Express people were employees of Railway Express.
That was a separate company?
That was a separate company.
Really?
Like that envelope I have? That's
Okay.
Railway Express Agency, REA.
But
They
the
were-
depot agents could work for them and handle that.
They handled strictly on commission.
Okay.
That was commission
So
only.
you guys
Because Richard said
pay
he
for
did
that?
that.
There's my boy, Bob McKeith.
You and Bob were pretty tight?
Oh, yeah. There's Roy Schmidt. He had a brother, Don Schmidt, who was in the yard at Altoona, was probably one of the best riflemen I ever saw in my life. And he ran a rifle range and owned it out at his farm, out of Altoona in the hills. The shooting classes and sighting in for deer season for a long, long time. Bob was married to Marge McKeith.
Now, Bob, was he a softball player? Were you telling me that he was? Bob McKeith? You were telling me that someone was a softball player. Or were you telling me that Jerry was?
Softball player that I remember right, his name was Bob, would be Bobby Ashland from here. And Bob, I think Arlyn knew him too. Used to own the garbage company. Bob Curtis.
I never knew him. I quite a softball guy, but I didn't know him.
Tremendous softball pitcher in his day. Tremendous. Yeah, there's some of the names, of course, some of the boys in 1906 and whatever, they were gone a long time before I happened on the railroad scene. But you look at all the yards that were there. Those were just guys with yard rights. They had no line rights.
So they couldn't go out over the road. Now, did you have, like, say if you were a yard guy and you wanted to go out over the road, how did you do that?
You just started right out as a brand new guy.
Really? So, I mean, it almost like be taking on a brand new job. It wasn't
Yep.
like you could transfer.
No.
Wow.
You started out day one.
So you kind of had to know what you wanted to do when you hired
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, same with the signal crews and all those. No interchangeable rights.
Huh.
Bob McKeith,
Doesn't really seem right, does it?
Well, it seems very foreign.
Yeah.
Very strange.
Somehow you get credit for your time you put in with a company, although it's a completely different position, could be too. You know, so.
yeah.
That's,
Where did you get the seniority list from 29 and stuff like that?
These were all from Jerry.
Well, they were.
Yeah, these are all from Jerry. His wife's got all these plus more. Or, you know, she did. I don't know.
Hope they're being
She would've-
preserved. Or
Yeah, that's what I was kind of hoping. Is that somebody, you know.
Art Reese, I knew him at Marshfield. And John Jadak, too. Yes, yes. Francis Peterson, he was here at our place.
oh my, we
Want
had,
a little snack?
Never refused.
need some energy to keep. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Is this yours?
Arlen says this coming Friday is the thing at Eau Claire again.
Mm,
End of the month.
the meeting?
Railroad guys, retired guys. Dig in, guys. They're nice and warm. Who else we got?
This line from Chippewa down to Dran now, I got a motor car speeder. And from Dran on down, we got about 13 miles of track. This is all taken out, but it's a bike trail. I rode that 2 summers ago now. All paved, really nice. Really nice. A lot of people ride that. And it goes out from Red Cedar up to Menominee here too.
Louis Hayden, night baggageman in Maryland. God, I knew Louis so well. Nicest fella. He, ended up owning a big grocery store after his job was cut. Yep. Pete Dominski, remember him? Jim Staberg, he was at Hudson. I knew him there, and then he got transferred to Rice Lake. And then that's when they abandoned all the jobs.
Now, didn't the Park Falls line come out of here someplace right by Rice Lake?
Oh, really?
Right out of Rice Lake?
Well,
It went up here.
no, it actually just north of Rice Lake here.
Joined the main line up there.
Tuscobia, yeah.
Okay.
It's about what, 4 miles north, 3-4 miles north of here.
Did you know that there used to be a depot at Tuscobia?
I
'Cause
saw
my
that
dad worked in it.
a little picture of it. Where did I see? Oh, at the
Right in the middle of the Y out there.
yeah, that's a picture of it in
Wasn't very big.
no.
Was that Y still in until the end?
Yeah. Yeah. I worked on the Park Falls line too.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Where did you work?
Winter, Loretta, Birchwood.
A lot of pulpwood on that line mostly, huh?
Yeah. That's mostly what it was about. Now here was my chief clerk when I was the supervising agent in Altoona, Warren LePage.
Hmm.
Yeah. Here's Irwin Hardy's agent superior for Altoona. Yeah, I knew a lot of these guys, I'll tell you.
That must have been interesting working on that Park Falls line. There couldn't have been much contact with the outside world other than the telegraph, huh?
Not too much of that.
Hmm.
See, I remember that too. They even had agent helpers at Chautauqua. That was a big feed outfit down there.
Hmm.
Now here was my guy, Ralph B. Geisness. That name ring a bell?
Excuse me.
Ralph Geisness. Did that ring a bell?
This guy's is from Rice Lake here. Is that the one?
That's Rich's dad. That just died here a while ago suddenly.
Hmm.
Yeah. Ralph, as it turned up, his last job, he was my chief clerk at Marshfield. He was at Baldwin here. He was a helper there. And then he went to Eau Claire for quite a few years. And then he got bumped on that job, and he ended up bumping them. He bumped Jimmy Brandenburg, who had less. There's Jimmy Brandenburg right there. He bumped him, and so Ralph came and closed out his railroad career as my chief clerk at Marshfield. He retired there, and then they moved here to Rice Lake, which was his hometown.
Now, were there many actual shippers in Marshfield back then? Jerry had mentioned that he had thought that the majority of the business was stuff going to and from the rapids, but
Well, a lot of pulpwood. But as far as other shippers, most of the recipients of freight, like Hub City and whatever, they're all on the Sioux line.
okay.
The Sioux line, it kind of built into the business district, and it expanded along their tracks right into the Omaha, and the Omaha kind of had the pulpwood and the rough freight, we called it.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Brandenburg's still alive. Just talked to his wife here not so long ago. He lived down by Menominee. In fact, his wife was tending tables at the Creamery.
No.
You've eaten there.
No, I haven't.
Oh.
I heard it's
Well,
really nice, but pretty expensive.
Well, that's a little pricey, but very nice.
Yeah. Down in Downsville.
They have a nice. They make pottery down there yet too. Well, here's a name. Tony Van Landschoot, assistant yard master at Itasca. That happened after I got off my shift one day. Tony had a hot-headed brother. I'm trying to think. We always called him Soprano. Tony and Soprano. Anyway, they'd had some kind of a terrible argument, running feud for several weeks. And one day, Tony came to work, and his brother challenged him or whatever, and Tony shot him dead right there in my office at Itasca. I hadn't been gone a half an hour. I was over across, there was a steakhouse over there, Itasca Steakhouse, and I was over having dinner. Cops car rolled up, and Tony got a long prison term out of that. Shot him right there in the office. It wouldn't have been 10 feet from where I was sitting.
Wow.
Tony, you never figured that for Tony either. He was the nicest guy, but his brother was just after him. Soprano wasn't. He was an asshole. Real soprano. And it happened right there, apparently. And what it was about, I never even knew, but it ended up pretty nasty.
Oh boy. So, was it pretty common for guys to be packing heat back then, be carrying guns like that?
Well, most of them boys up there did.
Really?
Yeah.
No, why was that? Just
Well, for one thing, Tony was out in the yard a lot, where there was a lot of bums and stuff like that, and everybody packed in the yard.
Really?
'Cause you had to protect yourself. Oh, sure.
Really?
Altoona, too, the guys all packed. They weren't kidding me.
I mean, I know today it's still pretty common if you work in Chicago, but
It was just for your own protection out in the yard. You know, there was bums and hobos all over in those days.
really,
Oh,
see,
yeah.
to me that just seems so incredible because right now, I mean, heck, if you sometimes you're not even on the property and the guys on the road are giving you a hard time, you know.
Yeah, you hear a lot of that.
I mean, I haven't really experienced it at all, personally, but I hear a lot about it.
He was a lifetime scout, Roy Dankelson. He was no clear when this came out. He ended up as a chief cricket spinner. There's my boy. He worked for me in Maryland. W.W. Glassbringer, known as Porky.
Porky?
Yeah, knew him well. Porky's been gone. He ended up buying a tavern over Rock Dam, Wisconsin. You know
Sure, I've been around.
All right,
Rockdale.
that was
Yeah.
Porky's Tavern. Good God, and then he'd come to work at night in Maryland, be all tuckered out. He'd lay there like a beached whale. Never did a damn thing all night. Dick, can you go out and get the mail in for me? I'm tired as hell. All right.
This is
Does Meacham have a website? Who's with the history of Marshfield area? Or who's got that one?
well.
It's
That's
got pages and pages of stuff.
the guy. He's in Florida. Hey, Ron Colin.
Colin, is that his? Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Now Meacham does have stuff specifically on Marshfield that was like in the Winnebago Land Whistle and things like
Okay.
that. That's on different sites, but he doesn't have a personal site.
And I was looking at, but I'm not from Marshfield. I thought it was interesting, but Marshfield in Texas.
Yeah.
So this guy was going to go to Texas with his railroad, or what? Is there a Texas, Wisconsin? I'm sure there isn't, but
Well, there were William H. Upham, and he is. I forget what he all was. He owned the Upham Manufacturing Company, which was a big place in Marshfield at one time, and that's where all the baseball fields are,
okay.
right west of downtown.
Uh-huh.
And he built this railroad to access the, I believe, to the hardwoods that were south of town. And when, somebody, if it was a reporter or whoever, they asked him, how far are you going to build? He says, oh, I don't know, maybe Texas. And he decided to name it the Marshfield in Texas. In fact, if you go to Wildwood Park today, there's a sign there next to the right-of-way that was there, even there when I was a kid. It says Marshfield in Texas on it.
I don't know if I can get these back in the right order.
Don't worry about it. I can always.
23 goes here, yeah, that's what I thought.
These are photocopies from a book. I believe was George Winkler. George Winkler, I think, was the guy's name, and he's a railroad. I don't know if he ever worked for the railroad, but he was a railroad buff anyway, and he
Okay.
wrote this. In fact, you probably see there at Lynn, on Milwaukee Road Cross. You ever remember that, or was that
Long gone.
long before your day? I know Jerry had said that he could remember seeing the right-of-way if you went through in the spring of the year.
Yeah.
Where was that at?
Lynn, where Lynn Dairy is, on Highway 10.
Back in, I got a railroad map, a big one, poster and stuff. I don't know what year it is. There were a lot of railroads,
Sure.
And obviously some were thrown out, some merged in, and stuff, but there was a lot back.
Another thing I just shipped Rich in the last bunch of stuff was a 1926 official railroad guide, hard to find.
I don't
Mine was in perfect shape, but, which will take care of it. 1926.
Wow.
You know, that sucker was like this thick.
Yeah, I've heard about them. I don't even know what they are really. I mean,
Boy, you rarely see one. I had it in a drawer here, and I thought, well, it's time Rich had that. So I just sent it to him this week. Arlyn, does the name Emily Plannert sound familiar to you?
Was that the athlete down in North there, or goes over there, yeah.
This is her grandfather. He was my clerk.
Okay.
Bill Plannert. He died 2 weeks before Emily made her first game at Eau Claire University.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks.
Hmm.
He was
If you went to call today, I'd been down watching softball today.
Would ya?
My daughter plays for Duluth. We were up there the last 2 days, and going to
Yeah.
St. Cloud Wednesday, Duluth Tuesday. We're just going all over now.
I see.
Bill Plannert was a car knocker.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Nice fella. Gosh, I see so many. Paulie Leland, he was at Altoona. One of my clerks down there. I had a good crew down there.
Well, that can make all the difference.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Good crew with a good leader. That's
What you have
what
to
makes
have.
things happen. If you got a good crew with a bad leader, you're going nowhere. And if you got a
Well-
good leader and a bad crew, you're going nowhere.
I didn't, you know, my way of management was to manage by example. And I said, guys, I'm going, yeah, I'm your boss, but I tell you, if you do your job, you have nothing to fear from me. I said, I will manage just the way I would like to be managed myself. Don't want to be everybody on everybody else's case. Da 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 da. I don't know everything. In fact, sometimes I wonder if I know anything. But that's the way I manage them, man. We just had the real good going operation there. Never had any problems. I know is the sheriff, old Colonel Matisic? His brother was one of my good clerks there, Al Matisic. Good man. You think back to all of the, God, they're all gone. Bobby Showers. Well, there was a couple there. The guy used to, Arlyn met him last time we had that breakfast, Erickson, Arlyn Erickson.
Yeah, yeah.
He
Well,
was- He was my switch engine fireman at Marshfield.
Really?
He worked with Big Daddy, who died of colon cancer, from down at below Toma. Merle Graywin,
Merle Graywin.
Grawin. Merle was a good friend of mine.
Are there any more seniority rosters on
Arlyn
here?
Erickson, those two was the engine crew for the Marshfield switch engine for a long time. Boy, they both did great work. Merle Graywin was the nicest, calmest guy that
Did you
nothing
get this
ever
one already?
rattled him.
I don't remember.
Yeah. I looked at it.
south of the rapids, there were 3 railroads side by side.
Mm-hmm.
And where did I just see the picture? So I'm trying to think where you could see all 3 grades. You know,
Keith posted it.
is that what it probably was, huh?
Keith posted it.
Oh,
Yeah, that's pretty neat. You know how they're that close together.
have some more cookies, guys. You got
Yeah,
one more upstairs.
thanks.
I'm gonna dig in on one of these bananas.
Help yourself.
If I can do it without tipping
Get them right at Quick Trip.
Yeah.
This morning. That's what they're famous for.
Oh yeah?
29 cents a pound or something? Or
Good for 19 up here today.
19?
Wow.
I just go in there and buy 1 or 2 and,
Yeah,
you know,
we
yeah.
buy them every day.
And to think about it, at the turn of the century to get something like this would have been something pretty special.
Yeah.
Well, at Marketplace Foods now, they're 49 cents a pound. But it's a lost leader
Yeah, right.
for KT.
Do you go in there and just buy bananas? I do once in a while.
Yeah.
I do too, but
Bananas
a lot of
and
people
milk.
don't, you know.
Hey, I can still get milk for 1% is what we drink.
Yep.
A gallon jug of milk is $1.99.
A gallon of milk.
Yeah.
That's cheaper than what it is at the grocery store, that's
I
for
know.
sure.
Well,
So they
get-
do that to get you in, so that
Right.
you
And maybe you'll buy your good gas or something else, you know, pop, 12
And I've
bucks a
been known
pop.
to buy a lot.
Yeah, right, see? Of course, they only make a nickel on that. I don't think they really care for that.
No,
That's just
4% is what they make
4%?
on most of them.
And last time I bought a lottery ticket, I had shaved.
Yeah.
So I had completely clean face, and it was probably 4 years ago, so I was, 30, 31. She carded me. Didn't believe I was 18. She said, well, that's the last time I'm shaving.
Yeah.
So you're engaged?
Well, yeah, pretty much.
Well, that's too bad.
First
I got two
marriage?
daughters. That's too bad.
First marriage coming up?
Yeah.
Gosh,
Good for you.
this is
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Lori and I's 50th wedding anniversary coming up in June. So we got I reserved the Elks Club, the lakeside room looks out over the lake.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, I've been an elk member for Christ's sakes for 30-some years. And so we're having a dance band. We're not one to put in the paper all those people from hither and yon,
Mhm.
don't bring any gifts, just, those people don't care about you, what the hell. So we're having the people who were in our wedding, and they're all alive yet.
Good.
Wow.
Good.
50 years
That's
later.
incredible.
Good.
Yeah.
You think
And,
about that.
You think about that. There's a chance of that nowadays. You
I mean,
know,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, they're all alive. Well, I know my graduating class at Black River Falls, at our 25th anniversary, all of my classmates were alive.
Really?
That was a pretty good sized class.
I already know that mine isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's and so we're all the kids wanted to put on a big party, so they're all hither and yon.
Well, I'll tell you,
Kids from coast to coast.
anybody that's been married that long has my respect because
For sympathy.
Yeah.
it's taken me a long
some days
time.
Some days it's a nice thing. Some days it's not.
I've been dating my girlfriend for over 4 years now.
really.
Yeah, and I've until just recently,
You weren't sure, huh?
Is she a railroad buff?
Well, you know what? She will drive the car to go chase trains so I can take pictures. Now, I'm sure that's going to change, once we live together,
Hey,
things like that.
I hate to say something, but my wife used to go fishing with me before we were married.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, used to. Now she wouldn't get close to
Set
one.
the hook.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's
Well, Lori likes to go fishing.
Good.
Of course, I do a lot of it. I still fish 16 to 18 bass tournaments a year.
Mhm.
And it's my passion. I don't know of anybody, but there probably is, in the state older than I, fishing on the regular circuit.
Well,
It's physically grueling.
I believe it.
Yeah. Like Dick Keener, well, Arlyn knows him. Retired radio announcer, quite a sportsman and everything. I took him with me on one turn. The weather was a little rough. I signed him up as my partner. He's a perch jerker. He's a real dyed-in-the-wool bass fisherman. So we got done, and he went up and I put the boat on the trailer like it is right now, and he laid down. I said, God damn it. He said, I am completely bushed. And he couldn't get over. He says, how in the hell do you guys take this day in and day out? He says, I know you do this, because I'm the one that sends in the fishing reports and tournament results and all that stuff. And I do all the talk shows for all this stuff coming up. And he says, man, I'm in pretty good shape. He traps and all that stuff. He says, man, I never realized how physically grueling it is to face the elements like you guys do every day out there. Well, we're out there for the 8. The only thing we take a dim view of is lightning.
Well,
And that we kind of, I've been out there a lot of times when I shouldn't have been, and I know that.
it gets scary.
Oh, God.
It gets scary. I've done that a time or two
I'll
as
tell
well.
you what's really nice is when you're throwing out your nylon line and it just floats in the air like that. That's when you throw the rod into the bottom of the boat.
Stop in a hurry, huh?
Something's going to happen in a damn hurry. That static electricity is building.
Sure.
Yep.
The damn line floats in the air with a bait on the end yet.
Oh.
I remember one time over at Balls and Lake, Ronnie Bratz and I were side by side, and we had the lightning jumping between our boats. It was just going snap, 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 snap.
You're kidding me.
He says, let's get the hell out of here.
I believe so.
Lord.
We beached them both. And I crawled up underneath a tree. I remember that. It was raining. We got 7 inches of rain during the tournament. But I drowned.
So how was the fishing?
Yeah, fishing's really good in those kind of conditions.
You couldn't feel nothing, see nothing. You know,
Yeah.
we couldn't even find shore for Christ's sake.
Really?
Yeah, we were up on Gordon Floyd.
Okay.
God damn, because you didn't dare run in that rock pile.
Hmm.
So I finally worked my way to a point of it and crawled up under a balsam tree, and you know we all got great rain suits.
Mm-hmm.
We all wear Gore-Tex.
Sure.
But goddamn, you know, when you're running, you can't keep it from coming in around here, and you're
All down
wicked
your
down
chest.
on it. Oh God! And the first thing you have to do, you have to go pee. Oh, God, how am I going to get all this stuff off in the rain?
Well, you're kind of lucky there. At least you can go. A buddy of mine goes fishing with me. He can't go in the boat, and he can't go if there's anybody
Is
within
that still
sight.
on? That's still
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen him lay in the bottom of the boat in pain. Please, just take me in, please.
Is that still on?
Oh, yeah.
I guess you could take it off while we're off the railroad stuff for a while. It's up to you. Yeah, I carry a pilot's relief bottle.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only way to go.
Yeah, that works. But he can't
I have
even
the
do that.
female adapter
Really?
for it.
Yeah. See, he and a buddy of mine went out to Seattle, and his brother lives someplace around Seattle, and they decided they're going to go out on this fishing boat. So they go out there for the duration. Well, you know, he gets out there lollygagging, he's drinking soda, and then he has a couple beers, and all at once he's got to go to the bathroom. So, well, he figured if, you know, since he had a couple beers, he would be able to go. Well, that didn't work out. So then he decides to get a he goes up in the front, pulls a curtain, still couldn't go. Give him a bucket,
God.
puts a towel over his head, just
Really?
could not go until he had to be on solid ground, and he couldn't be by anybody else. Like, if you're in a public restroom, you'll wait till you're done.
Don't join the army.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't do that. They ain't gonna work.
My brother said he had that same experience, and he joined the Marine Corps. Because, you know, he just got done doing this 9-mile hike or something, you know.
Yeah.
They get back, and everybody's in a big line. Well, here he is, and everybody's behind him going, come on, come on, come on. Nothing to doing. Here's a picture that's probably be of interest to you.
Further
This is,
up, or-
This is the Rhodes plant, and this right here is the new yard. I think, am I looking at that right? I believe, let me take a better look at that.
Yeah, that should be the new yard.
Right here, actually, this is lower 1 and 2. This is lower 1 and 2, and here's 4th Street, and there they are putting their train together in the new yard. That's one of the very few pictures I've seen of that. Bob sent me this. This is out of the
See,
Sioux Line
You
magazine.
know what that is, don't you?
Well, right here, this is Weyerhaeuser, or, you
Yep.
know.
That's their going out piles. Now Marshfield Homes was right down here.
This
This
there's
is the
still,
old Rhodes plant here. The Rhodes mansion should be a great. Here's the entrance.
So what did Rhodes do?
Plywood.
yeah.
Okay.
They
They made the
developed-
plywood.
They developed it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
that's where plywood came from, was Rhodes.
Okay.
That was the original plywood right there, and that sold out to the Weyerhaeuser Corporation, who they got into particle board, chipboard.
Now it's Marshfield Door Systems. I guess Weyerhaeuser wasn't interested in it anymore.
Weyerhaeuser, big company, state of Washington. In fact, I think part of this yard here, Rich, is what become Marshfield Homes. As I look at this map, because Rhodes pulled back
Okay.
this way. This is Sioux Line back here.
Right. That's their new yard.
Mm-hmm.
These are all lineup sheets from the dispatcher's office in Green Bay. So you see here
Yeah,
the
this-
waters meet early.
This has to go back into the 60s, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's got to be the 60s, I would think.
There's their sawdust reclamation system there. Well, they had as many fires out there as as Bissy Wood Products does here.
Yeah.
Good God, this dust is so inflammable. My God.
Almost like gunpowder,
Oh,
they say.
there's the Rhodes Mansion. It's got to be it right there. What a beautiful house that is. And the old Marshfield High School is right up here. Yeah, Marshfield was quite a town. God, I played a lot of ball down there. I was on the ball field seven days a week.
Oh yeah?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if this interests you at all. I don't think there's more of these coming up, but this is basically like a dispatcher record of movements. So it
Oh,
has the train
yeah.
number, the engineer, the conductor, loads, empties.
Well, this dispatcher's record, I was going to say, if it were in this mode here, then it's a train register.
Okay.
You ever have any train registers?
Oh.
Every station was where there was a junction point or whatever was required to keep a register of trains, and that had to be signed in by the conductor of that train. He wrote on there train number and what engines he had, what engineer he had. The rest of his crew, just a conductor and engineer, and how many empties, loads, tons, what time he arrived, and what time he was tying up, and when he would be rested. And I'd go there with my clerks, and they'd pick that up, and that's how we'd post this big 400 and some man board. And if the guy asked to be off, that was in the red flag column over here.
Okay.
And then we had assignments, East Chain Gang, and the train numbers, and it was a hell of a board, I'll tell you. We had a guy at the board 24 hours a day. That's
Really?
practically all he did was mark the board.
Really?
Yep. It was such a big job. Right. Sometimes, busy times, we had two guys running the board.
Huh.
Just posting names, and then when you really get in trouble, you look at the train register, and the guy'd forget to tie up. So then he had to go look for him. Say, well, when are you going to tie up? Well, he was still on drawing pay until he tied up, so he'd be over across the street eating or drinking. Or so we can't. You got to tie up, before you leave the depot.
Sure.
You're not eating on company time over here, but a lot of them did. So
As long as they could get away with
the
it.
tie-up time, we go and post the board, and then you could figure, okay, now, if you put in, the engine crews had a rule called second start in 22 hours. And if they made their second on-duty start in 22 hours, they got time and a half pay and an extra 100 miles for that whole trip.
Really?
They made some money. And then, if you could work a train crew for 16 hours, but we tried to get them to tie up in 15 hours and 59 minutes. Then you could go out on 8 hours rest.
Yeah.
If you went full 16, and some of them said, no, I'm putting on 16, then you had to be off 10 hours rest before you could call that train crew again. And they were all assigned, in chain gang, they were all assigned to crews. You held a regular job. Chain gang was kind of like the extra board.
Okay.
But if you were assigned crew to train number 490, that was your everyday job. So, yeah, the board was a big job. God, it took up a lot of room.
And that was at Altoona, right?
That was at Altoona. God, you had your Western chain gang and your Eastern chain gang and your branch lines, and good God, it went on forever. And like Bob Schauer was a good man on the board, but there's always something missing. So you had to go and find somebody and say, well, what did you do with this? Or you didn't put down how much tonnage you had. That all had to come out at the end of the day, and that had to kind of coincide with the dispatcher's record. So
I've got a dispatcher's record at home of, actually it's a Sioux line, and I want to say it's 1969, and it has record of movements east of Minneapolis to, what was the end of the,
well, the Western Division went down to Iowa.
no, this is a Sioux line.
Oh, the Sioux line.
This was the Sioux line, and it's the line through Barron and up to up to Rice Lake here. It has a record of a movement on that, but then it also
What
goes
division
west
was
to.
that on, Arlyn, the Sioux line? Twin Cities Division, wasn't it? There's main line
Yeah.
through here, right?
Yeah. That's main line to Sioux.
Main line to Sioux, yeah. I don't know. What,
I don't know what the division names were. I
Ours-
suppose I've heard, but I,
Ours would go into East St. Paul,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was joint wheelage. All the trackage from there was owned by the Minnesota Transfer Railway,
Oh,
technically.
yeah, the MT.
The MT. Gosh, there were so many of those around in those days that they had all the trackage rights. Didn't have any trains,
Mm-hmm.
but you had to pay them wheelage anytime you went over their tracks, and Minnesota Transfer was one of them. And see, they handled all the transfers for all the other railroads. They distributed the cars. If it was going Canadian National CP, they went there. If they were going Sioux Line, they went there. If they were going Frisco, whatever it happened to be going, there was that many interchanges, and that was a damn busy railroad.
Well, look, you had Lake Superior
all they
Transfer and
had.
Terminal.
Yeah.
Had well, even in Chicago today, still have 2 or 3 of
You
them.
have the Short Line Railroad down in Chicago. That was just a transfer switch road.
Yep. Belt Railway,
The Belt Railway of Chicago, BRC,
Indiana Harbor Belt.
Indiana. Yeah. Those are all really adapted for the steel mills
Mm-hmm.
on the south side of the Indiana Harbor Belt. But gosh, when you think about how busy, and there were some that just serviced the humping yard.
Mm-hmm.
okay, here's some I hadn't seen before. This is timetable, and I've seen several of them, and I got a few. But here, between Fairchild and Mondovi, maximum train speed, all trains 20, except Class A diesels was 15. What's a Class A diesel?
By weight. The heavier engines.
Probably 6-wheel jobs.
Yeah.
But
Well,
they didn't go down that
I
at all.
thought they didn't even run Jeeps on the Mondovi line,
Right. Too heavy.
so it was just
Some of 'em-
switchers. No.
You know that everybody has said, but
Yeah,
then
they
I
just,
talked to.
just the Alcos and the small Fairchilds.
They ran some Jeeps down with snow plows. They said,
Well, that's because they needed the weight to stay on the track,
and
move the snow.
I don't know, but some guys said they ran flangers down. I got pictures of flangers on the
flangers.
main line,
Yeah.
and some guys said they never ran a flanger down there. But you know, you got to almost be the guy says they ran them, because if he said they did, he must have been on it,
Yeah.
unless he forgot where he was. You know,
But
so
you know,
just
there was
don't-
different types of flangers. Some of the older flangers actually had rock in the front end for ballast,
Yeah,
and then they'd run the flangers down there, but they had rock, and then they weren't as heavy as those that had the weights,
yeah,
flanger weights in
yeah.
them.
I've
But
got.
that-
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna say those Class A diesels, that was all by weight, because a lot of your branch lines, you know, only had 112, 115 pound rail.
Oh, that line had 60.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
You go
yeah.
on the main line, that was all 160, 175.
Yeah, that's a lot of difference.
And that, you know, that, and another thing is the road bed underneath you does this all the time.
Yeah.
I was telling a guy the other day, he said, God, he said those railroads, you know, they jerk back and forth. I say, that's what keeps them on the track.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have a perfectly true running. You got to do this every now and then. It's kind of like a gyroscope. You know, you can't turn a gyroscope, but unless you just do this with it every once in a while, then you can make it do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Same principle. That's, you know, the tires they have on the old steamers, you know. I've seen the tires come off of them.
I bet you.
They get warm
Yeah,
if they're pulling real hard,
yeah.
and all once that steel
Slip around,
expands,
yeah.
and away they go.
Wow. Can you imagine getting hit by one of those?
Some of those stood 6 foot and more tall.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they used to call them cornfield meets. Meet out in the cornfield.
Well, you had. I've already heard on some of the rougher branches on the Northwestern is no. I'm gonna mess this up, but they call it harmonic something or other, where the about 7 or 8 miles an hour is it?
Yep.
And the thing would just
Yep.
box cars would just tip over.
You could see half of the next car in some of these rough things when they start rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
And if you looked, you could see half of the next car and then half of the next car when they were rocking.
My mind, getting older, what? It's between 13 and 19 miles per hour, I think it is.
Something like that.
And you can't maintain that speed. Even now, and they bring in hopper cars and stuff like that. They'll
Really?
flip right over.
Yep.
Harmonic motion.
Yeah, harmonic
They
motion,
oscillate.
Right.
And they get just the right with a jointed rail. Now on
Yeah.
welded rails, no problem.
Right.
With a jointed rail, they
Yeah.
set up that motion,
Yep.
and pretty soon they'll just tip right over.
Yep.
It's hard to believe, but
Isn't it though?
Yep.
so you got to adjust your speed. You just keep it
Yeah.
moving and stuff. And
And anything that's put out in the bulletin form like you have there, that is a permanent. So they don't have to put out train orders all the time.
Right.
They put it
Yeah.
out in bulletin form like
Yeah.
that, and that is the law. But then if you want to deviate from the law, then you would issue a train order.
does it say anything or your
That's what
personal?
that-
Those were notes from Paul. You know, have either of you guys ever heard of Dave Kramer? He's a guy that's on the internet quite a bit.
I've heard the name.
I don't think I'm familiar with
Well,
Is he an author too?
well, he sells railroad collectibles like
Oh,
his
yeah, from
track charts
Madison.
and stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
I've communicated with
Well,
him.
there's a guy, and I can't think of his name now. I've talked with him back and forth as well. He's on our group,
Okay.
and he puts out this CD of railroad pictures.
Yeah, I got some of them.
Do you have the one of this division and stuff? Okay, because I brought mine along. I didn't know if you guys had seen it or not.
I bought it right away.
Yeah,
It wouldn't work on my old computer though.
right.
Work-
Mine either.
So I didn't buy a new computer for that, but it works fine on a new one.
Right, and it has pictures of Marshfield. I believe it has Eau Claire and Chippewa.
And Bloomer, and I think Cameron Spooner here. It's got big Elcos, the 628 set up in the Spooner.
Have you seen it yet?
What you want to do is transfer that to a DVD.
You can't.
Why?
He's got it. Well, at least I couldn't.
Yeah.
Can-
You
You
get
can't
around.
copy. There's special like capture programs, I guess you can do something like that.
My
But you
son-
got to buy the
My son's a computer engineer, Rich,
yeah.
and he
I'm
will
sure
show you
There's
how
a way around it, but they're
He gets-
protected for them.
It's a copyright infringement. There is stuff that he gets on the internet. He takes any DVD you want, and he brings it home, puts it in that little black box, and
Yeah.
hell, it
I
copies
think-
as many copies as you want.
I think they call that ripping it, where they rip. I don't understand it myself.
They bypass the security.
Right, right.
There's always a way
Oh yeah,
to get around security.
right.
Have you seen the CD? Oh, okay. Then I won't bother running out to get it.
Yeah, it's
No.
yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of them. What's
You ever heard of A. Robert Johnson? Now, I mentioned that, and you will see the name. He's dead now, and he is from Eau Claire,
So we
and
can't talk to him anymore?
no, not unless you got some special connections.
Yeah, he got one of them crystal balls.
Yeah.
Everybody puts their hands on the table and lights candles, maybe, but
He
Weed
took,
keyboards.
yeah, he took railroad pictures in that area, and fabulous collection. Okay, and he
Yeah.
had books and stuff. And the books were for sale in the bookstore when he died and stuff. But the railroad collection, the family was trying to sell to the Chippewa Valley Museum. I heard they wanted $25,000 for it. Maybe that was a little inflated. They didn't have any money for it, So I've been trying to see if I can get access. I saw some of that one year at a train show in Eau Claire about 15, 20 years ago. Unbelievable.
really.
It's got the 400 with blood all over it when you hit that herd down by Augusta and stuff. Anyway,
What you got?
I think Arlen's heard this, haven't you?
Dick, anyway, this Don Knutsen's got A. Robert Johnson's slide collection, though. It's too bad it's just to look at. So
something like that should be really published.
yes, and I'm going to have access to it. I hope he's got some Mondovi line shots. Chances are not. I've talked to professional photographers. I took pictures all around Eau Claire, down the Mississippi River and stuff. Never went down the Mondovi line. There just isn't anything really decent. I'm going to come up with enough pictures to,
Sure.
but still, it's really slim. And it was my own fault too.
It's worth a try, though.
Yeah, but I go down there and see them. I just got lined up to time. At 3:25 it goes off. You got a train leaving at 3:25 or something.
Push the reset button. But every hour, it has a new. And it has an electric eye, so when it's dark, like someone's bedroom, it doesn't operate.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
That is really nice. My wife or my mother bought me one for Christmas, a Lionel one. It's so tinny, and stuff. That is a really
Yeah.
quality clock.
I still got the original container for it, so if you need one. tell you where to get it.
Really?
I've had this for several years, and it's just as nice stereo sound as
Yeah.
as you want to have. I'll see if I got that box. I know I have it, but when I get tired of listening to a lot of it, then I take the batteries out of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think I've got the box in here.
You know, it's kind of interesting you mentioned, you know, about like the Mondovi line. You know, even today, if you want to find pictures out on the main line someplace, La Crosse, Superior, Chicago, Milwaukee, you can find pictures left and right. But guys won't rail fan these smaller,
No.
these light density lines. I can tell you, I probably haven't seen a half a dozen pictures of the Wisconsin Central on the Ashland line.
Yeah.
You know, other than the things I've taken.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
I mean, Bob Guile has a few,
Yeah.
Tom Tardif, but I mean, those guys, you know, Bob, he's all over this part of
Yeah.
the country because he's in insurance.
Yeah. You move around.
And of course, Tom, you know, he knows, I can't remember the guy's name, but he knows that conductor on that Ironwood job.
Well, when I was with it, it was Wes Bush was a conductor. When
Okay. That's a different guy. Then.
Yeah, he's not on it, and the engineer was Jim Furcus, and he's
Oh, he knows Jim.
yeah. Jim's I guess I don't know. He's got some physical problems, and I don't think he's working right now.
Okay.
And I think maybe I just heard that Wes probably got. Because I was hoping I rode from Ironwood to the mine. I wanted. They say it's real nice from Ironwood down to Mellon too, and I didn't get to ride that. I don't know if I'll get to now. So
Well, I had the opportunity.
My wife's summertime mass for her out back.
I went up there right when, it was right prior to the CN takeover, and I met those guys up at the Golden Glow Cafe. Bob Kometz was the engineer at the time, and their conductor. Oh, I can't think of his name. He became the footboard the footboard yardmaster down at Fond du Lac. And I wish I could remember his name. Nice guy, real nice guy. But anyway, I met him up at the Golden Glow in Ashland because they'd pull their train down by the coal dock and then walk up and have breakfast because that's all the retired railroaders get together up there, like every Tuesday or Thursday, something like that. And so that's why they would always go there. So I went there and had breakfast with him. He goes, you know, I knew you were coming today, and I don't know him real well, you know, but he said, I knew you were coming today, and we were going to invite you along for the ride back to Mellon. He goes, but we got something across the teletype. Says absolutely no riders. So I'm sorry, but you know they had an F45 and an SDL 39 for power that day.
you got some great shots, huh?
Oh yeah. Well, I got slides, I got pictures, I got video. They're not the greatest because, you know, especially then I wasn't doing any digital. I was just doing film, and I'm not really good at film. You know, at least I'm better now.
Yeah.
But I do have some decent shots that I took with the instant, I had slide film, so they turned out pretty well. But I could still cry. Why didn't I go the week earlier? Why? You know.
WC was really good about giving rides, you know, and stuff like that. Didn't make a big deal of it, you know. You just hop on. But now CN's kind of tight.
Oh yeah. Well, the weekend before the takeover, I'm taking pictures on Byron Hill, and a guy comes over and starts taking pictures next to me, and he hands me my card. He works for EMD, and he's the guy that goes out with the brand new locomotives to train the crews. He's like, yeah, shoot me an email sometime. We'll get together. Okay, cool. You know, thinking this is the greatest day ever. I head up to North Fond du Lac and taking pictures at Subway Road, and putting together a train there. And the guy was like this to me, and I'm like, oh boy, now what? You know? He goes, you want to go for a ride? Does a one-legged duck swim in a circle? So I got to know him. He's a Kiwi engineer. He came from New Zealand when WC took over down there, and they had all these guys working down there, but very little traffic moving.
Okay.
So they said anybody that wants to come to the United States, we'll get you your green card. So he was one of the guys that came over, and I talked to him, and he's a big model railroader, and he's had at least one front cover shot on Model Railroader magazine.
Really?
Real nice guy.
It isn't where I thought it was. I'll find it.
real nice guy.
Hmm.
His name is Roy Rogers.
Well, that's hard to remember.
Yeah. Well, he goes by Bruce because he hates the name Roy now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of things, how long since you seen one of those?
Since I was a kid, back in the playgrounds at Brick School in Chimney Rock, and they go buy us some playground equipment. Look, we were just talking about balls like that. That's a 16-inch, and they get soft in a hurry. That's where you
Kitten ball.
bat first, kitten ball.
Yeah.
You bat first because it'll go further. Because after one inning, it's soft and it won't go anyplace after that.
I've never seen one like that.
They're rare.
That's bigger than a normal softball,
Chicago,
right?
yeah, regular is 12-inch. This is 16-inch.
Wow.
This is big, I guess, in
Think I
Chicago.
don't have everything?
They still have.
I'm making a damn good effort.
I'll tell you, I don't believe the stuff you got.
Wow.
You didn't buy this yesterday either, did you?
No. Came out of another box I had in the attic.
Too bad my daughter isn't here. She would love to see something like that.
Your attic sounds like Santa Claus's magic bag.
Hell, we took bids for 7 hours and didn't get done. That's only about I don't think even half of the attic is done yet.
Oh my lord.
I had like a lot of Civil War stuff. My God. But I just ran into that. I go,
Yeah.
Arlyn would appreciate
You
that.
betcha.
No.
God, I haven't seen one of those in so many years, except for this one. I don't think you can even buy them anymore.
Well, I heard they played down Chicago a lot. I was just talking this weekend with somebody, I can't remember, softball fans.
I got
And he
it.
said the same thing, so they must make them.
I brought it at a clearance sale. I see that.
Actually, De Beer is not that old a company. It's still in business, I believe, too. Made in Haiti, huh? That's not surprising at all.
Albany, New York, De Beer.
Well, you try to type it into the internet and you'll find out if they make it.
Yep. I think you could buy it.
They have steam welded K-Pock,
All right.
elastic shell winding. God.
Now, Arlen, did you ever work for the railroad?
No, I was a high school teacher, but I like trains, so I did go up to Spooner for 5 years and volunteered my life up there for 5 years.
Oh yeah.
So I got to do quite a bit of stuff, from restoring to track work up through conductor and engineer.
Did you go at the museum?
No, the museum is separate. This is the tourist railroad,
Oh, okay, the pizza special.
the pizza
Yeah.
special train. Yep.
Well,
So I ran
you'll
that
see
for a
my
couple
name
years.
in the railroad museum. I've donated quite a bit of stuff to them up there. You know what I wish I had have kept, well, I actually never, I should have. When I was still single then, my cousin Donnie came to work with me. I was working at Cameron at the time. He had the Sioux Line and the Omaha Crossing.
Oh,
there,
Cameron. Okay.
right down here. And so it was a Sunday night. And we didn't have nothing to do. No, only one train. That was about 5 o'clock in the morning. So we're poking around out in the freight house. I had a pretty good-sized freight house there. And so, what's up there about the coal bin? I've never been up there. So there was kind of some steps somebody had nailed to the rafters or to the joists up there. So I climbed up there and took my flashlight and said, "Hey, Donnie, look what I found." I found one of those one-man speeders.
Oh, really?
Velocipede.
Yep. And here the damn thing was up there. So Donnie and I got that thing down out of there. It was a lineman's model. It had 2 wheels, then it had this big rail that kind of went out, and it had another wheel at the end
Like
of
an
it. down
outrigger.
there. An outrigger like that. What should we do with this? Let's see how it goes. Okay, so we got on the damn. Now you realize it's downhill all the way going towards Weyerhaeuser. We took the damn thing and went to Weyerhaeuser. But
That's up quite a ways.
yeah, I know. We had all night. Coming back wasn't so much fun. It's all uphill.
Yeah.
So I'd get out and push, and Donnie would pump, and then we'd trade places. We were worn out. We got back about 10 minutes before train time.
Really?
So I said, well, we better put the damn thing back up there. I don't know if anybody even knew it was there.
Mm-hmm.
But I could have took the thing
I
home.
wish you would have saved it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I saw one go just like it over Harold Johnston's. It might even be that one. I could have took it down and put it in my station wagon and Elvis, take that old piece of crap, but nobody wants
You
that.
saw one? Is there one around now?
Well, they sold one 2 years ago. You know, Harold Johnson from Mastercraft collected stuff from all over the
Okay.
planet, you know, and he had one over at his house.
Okay.
And they sold it at auction to a guy from the Twin Cities. What do you think it brought?
Couple grand.
Try
$2,000.
$8,000.
Oh, you're kidding me.
It was in perfect shape, and I'm looking at the thing. I'm saying,
Now, was this a pump one or the bicycle one?
well, one.
Pump one.
Yep.
A guy joined our speeder club down in Durant. He's from Florida, and he's got one. He had it in a museum out, I think it's in Delano, out in Minnesota.
Yeah.
But he's going to bring it back next summer so we can run it on that speeder line down in Durant.
This was the pump one.
Yeah, it's a pump one.
They're rare. They're rare.
Oh, very rare.
And I could have had the darn thing, but Harold Johnson from Mastercraft was a good friend of mine. The stuff this guy collected, they'll never in God's green earth find it all. He has it all over the United States. I know Miles, he was the one that collected nautical brass. He had that stored all over the West Coast. He told me where he had some, you know, because, oh, here's a storage bill from this company. What do you got out there, Miles? Oh, he said, I brought some Navy brass and stuff out there, you know, diving helmets, and stored it out there. You know, they had stuff all over the country, and I don't know how they're ever going to find it.
Yeah.
It'll just all be, maybe lay there 50 years to be confiscated. I
Yeah.
don't know. But I should have kept that. It was a lineman's
Wow.
one, one of the lighter ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at the one, there was an exact one that Harold had made, was even one from
Yeah.
the Hammer.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at it, it's that same Sioux line color, you know, that kind of a yellowish color they had way back then. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, I think I've seen this one before.
Oh, man.
But, you know, you don't even think of it at the time,
No.
Grace, when you're
No.
19-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Hell, we were having fun. We
Yeah.
Yeah.
the antique value of it. The train light thing I'll get to, I just couldn't find the box back there.
Fine.
I even have all the boxes for all my reels, and
Hmm.
the empty ones. And
This guy's got a few bass fishing rods too.
Well, I sold 22 of them at the auction.
Oh, my God.
In one lot or by one?
No, I have a rack, and I have a duplicate of the rack here, and then I took the pattern and I built one. I have one from St. Croix Rods that they store. It'll hold 22 rods. That's without reels, so I took them up there. They went pretty good, but I'm out here and I got them put over there and getting ready for the auction. You know. I said, that's pretty good commitment on it. My stuff is always top,
Mm-hmm.
because in tournaments you don't want to have equipment failures.
Right.
And so I had 22 of them over there, and I said, well, that's a commitment for me. You realize I've never sold a rod. And she looked at me and says, I just counted the rest, and we still have 63 more.
Oh, you're not going to run out.
That didn't include the 13 I have in the boat yet.
Oh, my Lord.
So yeah, I get to be an accumulator, but we kind of accumulated ourselves right out of space. You know, our attic
Yeah.
has 14-foot ceilings on it, and we couldn't hardly get out there anymore. Something had to happen.
Yeah.
And that Rich's stuff was up there too before he moved to New Jersey. He started here when he went back to school to get 2 more master's degrees. He has 3 now.
Oh, my God.
And he's the one interested in the railroad stuff. And God, he had stuff up there when he moved here from Denver. And I don't know how, when you think about what you had up there, how the rafters ever. And of course, they're full 3-inch rough sawn. Most of them are oak. If you pound a nail in it, wave goodbye to it.
Yeah,
'cause you're
you're not
never
gonna pull
gonna
it
get
out.
the damn nail back out again.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, the old lumber barons built this house, but yeah, it's amazing what I run across, what I have saved over the years.
Yeah, it's good as we get older to start getting rid of some of that before something happens to us, and the kids have to do it, and they're on
Yeah.
time schedules, and the time it take to do it, and everything, and
You know, I've got arthritic knees, and I tell you, those flights of stairs coming out of the attic with, I mean, dishes, a set of dishes.
oh, you bet they're heavy.
Man, and all the way down, and then out into a trailer. I hauled, how many trailer loads? A 6x10 covered trailer I have. And I hauled, I think, 6 trailer loads. I had that auction, it was full. And Matt kept saying, where in the hell are you getting all this stuff? But we did well.
Good.
We did well. And I was telling you about those shooter marbles. $340 one of them sold for, and $160 for the other. At Hill
I
Island.
heard that from my friends that were up there, and they said, those marbles, 340 for one, 160 for the other one. They couldn't believe it. I said, what's so special about a marble? I don't
didn't
know.
know either. I had them in a bank bag with a whole bunch of other marbles.
Really?
I didn't know one marble from another. So we had a couple of little pulp plates, soup dishes, the kind you get that are disposable. So Max says, "Oh, just put them in there." So I put them out on the table. I put a shooter in each one. There was a big, the guy now, I know what they call them. They call them German swirls. Look, a little tornado inside. So this antique dealer from Hayward came down the Friday before the sale. Look around, marked down what he wanted to bid on. And he's looking at these marbles. I'm standing there, and he says, Dick, I think I'd put those under lock and key. Oh, it's goddamn marbles. And we had all of those banks of shelves, sliding glass doors that you could put the lock in. I had those, a lot of stuff in there because I had lots of old cast iron toys and old cast iron banks from back in the 1800s. And Indian beadwork, Indian arrowheads, lance heads, and all that kind of stuff. And I said, well, why would you put marbles? He said, see that one shooter right there? He said, I figure I'd bid at least $200 on it. I said, on that marble? I said, you kidding me? He said, no. So I said, yeah, they'll go under lock and key. So it's amazing what you don't think.
Mm-hmm.
I had one from Fenimore. I had a GAR Post 173 Gendarme Republic, a medal, or I guess you'd call it more of a ribbon, a parade ribbon. The Monteith Post at Fenimore, Wisconsin. It was a reaction in the last year of the war, which is 1861 to 1865. And this was the first reunion after the end of the Civil War. So paid $135 for it. And you just never know. And some of the stuff I'm working with people did, I said, what the hell is wrong with them?
This collectible thing is just taking off in this country, just big time.
And anything, I had a pair of waders, they're size 11, which are too small for me. And they were nice Hodgman waders, $5. And they were insulated waders.
Oh.
Price, that's $65 worth of.
Yeah.
But I didn't need 4 pair.
Yeah.
So that's what gets me is stuff that I felt should have brought more, didn't bring crap.
It depends on who's there and what they want,
Yep.
That's right. If the antique person's there, they don't want the waiters.
Right.
No.
That's more
There was a
serviceable.
lot of antique dealers there.
Yeah.
I brought 2 things home. One was a gold watch I had a reserve on. The other was that rope bed, which I know I have documented history on that, written history, 160 years of it, from Fenimore, Bailey Estate. So had lots of that. And the paper, we had those albums with the old greeting cards and calendar. Christ, the women went. Christ, one of those
I
went
bet.
for $380 for one album.
You did all right there,
Wow.
didn't
Right?
Well, that's how he's paying for his next
Yeah.
trip to
you?
Hawaii.
Yeah.
3 girls pretty near $10,000.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah, just stuff from the attic. We can't even see where it made a dent. Much. But then I had to pay the advertising. That really corks me. Our advertising is putting $1,000.
Really?
Well, if you want people to come, you
Yeah,
got to get it
advertise.
out there someplace, I
Right.
guess, huh?
And this goes right to the Minnesota Antique Dealers Association. It's a big distribution from there. Then you got to pay the auctioneer 15%.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Takes a bite out of it.
Yeah.
And then I did all the damn work.
Yeah,
Lori and
sure,
I, we
sure.
hauled it all up there and put it on tables, and normally they do all of that. So I did negotiate. Mac's been a friend for years. He gave me a 3% discount. I only charge 12% commission. But it's, we had to have the room.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what it comes
Yeah.
down to. Next thing that goes, I think, is going to be my coin collection. I've collected coins for more than 50 years. But the coin market right now is so damn soft.
Is it?
gold market's coming back. Price of gold is up over pretty $600 again.
You
It's
know,
come back about $200 in the last 3 months.
you know, I don't know if you've ever been in Auburndale, Wisconsin.
And many times.
Right on the corner used to be a place called Ranks Bar.
Rinks,
Ranks. You familiar with that place?
Yep.
Big old wooden bar with all the.
right across from the
Mirrors.
bank.
Well, my dad grew up in Auburndale, and it was in the Rank family or whoever they had owned it for many, many
Seed corn
years.
people, Wilbur Rink.
Yeah.
That's the guy.
Oh yeah. So anyway, when I was, I don't know, 10 years old, 12 years old, they sold the place. I don't know if he died or what happened. Well, they decided they're gonna, take this thing apart and refinish it. So they start pulling this old bar apart, and they're finding gold and silver pieces back
I
there.
figure, yeah.
Yeah,
Gold
the
and
drop
silver.
down.
Yeah, because he said, well, that's what they used to do for a tip. They
Oh.
just throw them up on top of the bar. I don't know if they had spittoons up there or something to throw them into, but that was how they got tips. And here it is, yeah, it's gold and silver pieces.
Oh, yeah.
Nice find.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my
Yeah, I know where there's people that got a lot of gold now, but people still think it's prohibitive to own it, and it's not.
It's not, is it?
You can own as much gold as you want. It used to be back until about, maybe up to 1970. As an American citizen, you couldn't own more than 5 pieces of gold.
wow.
They recalled so much of it during the war effort, and they were afraid if people got to hoarding over it would upset the gold standard. But what causes the gold market to move is when times get a little hard again, people go back to the basics. And the Saudis are the ones that's been buying the hell out of gold.
Oh.
All this oil money they're making,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
standard is still gold. Silver is dropped. But yeah, there's so much collectible stuff like this chest right here. Curly maple. Bought that at a neighbor's garage sale when the elderly lady moved. 3, 4, 5 years ago. Paid $4 for it.
Oh, you're kidding me.
I figure there's a guy coming up from Winona to look at the curly maple bed and this. This will probably bring 800.
Oh, I bet. But another thing that
Because you
really
look at the joints.
Oh, yeah.
It's all biscuit
all
joints.
dovetailed, yeah. Another thing that really sells well are the old ceramic beer bottles.
Yeah.
My brother's into bottle collecting, and he'll go around Ashland, all these little towns,
Yeah.
and he'll go look for their old where the dumps were in the 1800s, and he'll go dig in them.
Now they have a law in this county, you can't distribute old dump.
Is that right?
See what they did in Marshfield, where Marshfield Cold Storage Company is, right
Know
next.
it well.
Yeah, right there. There was a corner in an old bar, and behind that bar, well, they came and they tore down Marshfield
Right
Cold.
along the sewer line tracks.
Right, they tore down Marshfield Cold Storage and that bar. So as they're in there digging, my brother's buddy calls him up, says, "Hey, you need to get here, and you need to get here now." He's like, "They're in there digging." He goes, "I drove by there today, and I found an old dump." So it was right back by their latrines, and this was when Marshfield was in its heyday, like right when the saloons and everything.
1880s,
Right.
70s.
They start digging, and they're finding these ceramic bottles, like you would those big, kraut jugs,
Yep,
Yeah.
like that, big clay bottles. And they first one they put on eBay, $1,400. First one.
I'm speaking of railroad stuff. I've got when they closed my dad's depot, which dated from 1901, and the depot was still intact. The company bought it and moved it across